Little testing, testing. Are we live? Let's see. Are we live again? Little test 1, 2. Little test 1, 2. Testing our live stream again. Did we get any notifications? Let's see. Yes, we are live. Okay, so this seems to be working. Let's see if anybody shows up here for our little get-together test. Yeah, I think we got, let's see. We'll see here in a second how this kind of works. So what we are doing, can I close that? Yeah, that'll close. Hopefully that doesn't screw me up here. No, it shouldn't. Okay, that should be good. Well, let's see on Memorial Day if anybody's actually here today. I know there'll be a few of you that will show up. And then we'll, I'll do a little test and we'll see how this all kind of goes down. So hopefully we can bring our live streaming to a whole new level here. So what we're going to do, hey, David, thank God somebody's here. Hey, Dave, I'm going to be testing the audio from the SSL. So I wanted to do that. Hey, Atmosphere Audio finally caught a stream. This is just a test. I don't know how long we're going to do this. This is my final preparation to do the thing that I've been saying we're going to try to do here as far as some live stream enhancement on this channel, which is, oh, thank you, Atmosphere. I really do appreciate it, man. Thanks for being here. Let me just switch over to this thing so I can see this a little bit better, which is do live streams every so often, and we do a lot of Q&A, which is really cool. Oh, that's okay, Dave. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. I don't think we're going to be on here for long. This is more of a test so I can watch it back, and maybe a few of you guys it will hear some audio and you'll be able to tell me how it sounds. First of all, I just want to know, how does this look lighting-wise? How does my voice sound? It should sound okay. But what we're going to do is I got a session up here. I finally got all the pieces of the puzzle working to where we should be able to start doing soon where we could do some, demonstration stuff, whether it's mixing, whether it's learning a piece of gear, where we can not only do communication this way, Q&A, which is what we typically do, but then also be able to use the SSL, switch to different cameras, turn voice over mics on and off, and all of that. So that's what I wanted to try to do here, and it'll give me something to watch back and see how it works. So first off, we have right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cameras that are up. So we have obviously the main camera 1, and then if I wanted to switch to the overhead for the SSL, this is camera 2. If we want an overhead shot, right now camera 3, which will eventually be on the gear, where, I didn't pull anything out of the rack. This will be the camera that I'll move around to focus up on whatever piece of gear we're talking about. But right now it's just behind me. It's kind of cool. You got a nice, that's kind of a neat view, I guess. Might be cool for like a promo video. Anyway, that's camera 3. Camera 5 is the DAW, obviously. And then camera 7, that is the GoPro, where we could come up and, yeah, Dave, you still hear the fan noise? Yeah, the laptop, it's not the fan. Let me go back here. There's camera 7, which is the rack. It's not the fan that we have over here. It's the laptop. It's right here. And so what I'm going to do, well, I'm going to resolve that issue one way or another. You won't hear that when we do the SSL audio because my mic will be muted, so you won't hear that. Hey, Jim, but it is, I know it's annoying. It is annoying. I freaking hate it, man. Because you know what? This laptop is an awesome laptop. It works great, but this is one of the old Intel MacBook Pros. And as soon as you do anything on it, the fans just kick on and then they get picked up in the microphone and there's no real way to get rid of it. So I'm either gonna do one of two things. I hear, I was gonna buy a MacBook Air. A MacBook Air, instead of a MacBook Pro, the Air doesn't have internal fans in it. And for what I'm doing over here, I don't really need a MacBook Pro. It's kind of a heavy-duty machine. I really don't need it. But the MacBook Air only has a 13-inch screen like this one, and I would really like to have a bigger screen. So I originally thought maybe I'll get a MacBook Pro, the new M2 with the big 16-inch screen on it. where those fans, those with all the new architecture, the fans won't kick on like these do. But then I just read yesterday that Apple is about to release the new MacBook Air M2 with a 15.5-inch screen. So I think I'm going to wait for that laptop because the MacBook Air has no internal fans like this one does, so we won't have that problem. And it'll be cheaper than a MacBook Pro. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so I know you guys could hear the fan from the laptop. There's not much I can do about it. But when we play the audio in the DAW, you won't hear it because I'll mute my mic and you guys won't hear it. So anyhow, let's see. You think Camera 3 is ideal for talking heads? Talking headshot? Yeah, this camera here. Yeah, so we were turning around and we were talking. Right now, it's just, you know, it's just behind me, just kind of thrown over there. Yeah, you say you have the MacBook Pro and you're enjoying it, but it's overkill. Do you have the new M2? The new one? Because what I don't want is, it really pisses me off, I'll be frank, excuse my language, is that outside of the fan noise, this laptop works beautifully. It's a perfect laptop. There's nothing wrong with it. But we can't have the fan noise and I can't have that. I can't have it. Can't have it. So we're gonna have to rectify it one way or the other. So I'm working on it. I'm really disappointed. And again, I don't have anything running except my Ecamm live streaming software. I have nothing running on it, just that. One program, and Google is open, so I can monitor the stream. It's not like I'm doing a lot. I don't know why the fans kick on so easily with this. I think as soon as you start doing stuff with live streaming software and stuff and all the video, it just does it. I don't know. So anyway, back to what I was saying earlier. So camera 7 is going to be the rack. And then what this is going to be good for will be if we're going to patch something over in the rack. What I can do with the GoPro is I could come over here like this. It's on a selfie stick. Check this out. And I could bring it over to, let's say, a piece of gear, and I could show you, the settings. I could come over here and hold it and kind of show you the VU meter, that kind of thing. I could show you some of the settings on something like this, right? Or down here on something like this, which is kind of cool. I could do that kind of thing and then just put it back in its little stand when we're done using it, and then I could come back over to a camera like this. So that might be kind of cool to be able to do that. But when we do, well, before we keep going, let me play the console. So I just pulled up the session Dave and I were working on yesterday. Nothing's mixed or anything with it. So what I could do now is I'll play back Studio One. Let me know how the audio is. I'll mute my mic and then we'll see how it sounds for you guys.
So use your fingers at any time, Will you move me? I can shake it. There's something going on, and I can take it. I've been a shy boy. I try to do what's good, but when you are mine, I don't do what I should. I got it bad, boy. I got it bad, boy. I got it bad for you, yeah. I got it bad, boy. I got it bad, boy. I got it bad for you. I'm a man that tried it, never letting go. I got your number, hey, you got mine. So use your fingers at any time.
So how does that audio sound? Does that sound okay? Full fidelity sounds good. Full fidelity apparent. Is that good, full fidelity? I think so, right? It's not, it should be stereo. And then if the balance, if for some reason is off between my voiceover, like in the audio there, like if it's like, wow, one's way louder than the other, I could easily change it. Well, you guys can't see it, but I have a monitor over on my screen here that's adjusting the two levels between the voiceover and the console. I could do it here. And then I also have a way to do it in Studio One. I have a separate fader for the video print. So that should good. Joel says, sounds good through the studio monitor is great. Okay, good, that's good. Morning, what's your chain? I don't know what that means. What do you mean, what's my chain? What's my chain? What's that? So that's it. So there'll be all these different cameras. And then, like I said, what I'll eventually start off with, again, just trying to, which again, might be interesting. I think some of you guys said the other day when we were talking about it, you guys thought it would be a good idea, is I'll take like a piece of gear out of the rack. I think we'll do something, we'll start with like one of the DBX 160s. I'll pull it out, I'll extend the cables out to the console so I could put the unit right here in front of me. I'll put that camera 3, which is behind me, this camera here. I'll move this up to where we could see the gear. You guys could see it perfectly. And then what I'll do is I'll do some kind of a picture-in-picture thing. So you guys will be able to see the gear. I'll be able to talk to you. I'll be able to go over and like patch in, let's say, you know, on the kick drum, and then we can twiddle the knobs and we can test all the different settings on how it sounds on a kick drum, and then I can repatch it for the snare drum, and then maybe an acoustic guitar, keyboards, whatever. And we can spend, you know, 45 minutes or an hour just working with one piece of gear on different elements to see how it reacts and what we like and what we don't like. And then when we're done, then we could do like a kind of a hang. You know, we could talk or whatever. And that's one live stream idea. So it's not just always just, you know, Q&A in the chat, although I love that too. You guys like to do that, and I like that too. So we'll definitely do that as well. But then also to bring some audio to the picture, right? This is, you know, mixing music analog, right? That's the channel. So we should really do some mixing and play with the gear. And instead of talking about the gear all the time, actually demonstrating it and using it and showing it, you know, as a way to kind of change things up a little bit. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, we could, you know, that might just be another way to bring some more interesting content. I'll still continue to do the videos, you know, the demo review videos that are more, you know, short and to the point instead of a long live stream on every one, but I thought that might be kind of cool. And then we can also do a couple of live streams, maybe where, you know, 1 week, you know, if we have a session like this where I throw it up on the console, maybe 1 week I'll mix the drums and talk you through, you know, what I'm doing on the drums and what gear I'm using and trying out some different things. And then maybe the next week we do bass and guitars. And then maybe the third week we do some vocals and just do stuff like that. Maybe also show you my workflow in the DAW, how we print stuff back in, how we can print not only the print track, but also the individual stems or all of that stuff. So if you guys have workflow questions, instead of always talking about it, I can actually show you. So you can say, hey Dave, how do you print back in XYZ? I could say, here's how we do it. We patch this in, I'll switch to the overhead cam so you can see the overhead and see how things are kind of routed and laid out. And then do it so you guys can see it done in action. So that's kind of my thinking of what I'd like to try to do. The hard part for me was getting, so I have my little stream deck up here that I have all my camera angle, all my camera switching and my audio both in the DAW and on my lav mic here, all switchable and balanced. So I could do everything from here and I don't ever have to run back there, which is where all the video equipment is. It's all out of the way. So I have to remote control it. And that was the tricky part, getting it all set up to do that. And even trying to get it set up this morning just to do this test. I had to putz around with this thing a little bit to get it to work. So, but the only way to kind of figure out all these little issues is to actually do it. And then as the issues come up, deal with them, you know, and hopefully we don't have too many technical issues. But if we do, I know you guys are patient and we'll work through it. We'll work through it. So that's what I'm kind of hoping that we can do. Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool and kind of fun. And then right now, what do I have? Steve says, good morning, sounds like a plan, cool. Let's see, atmosphere audio. Have you guys looked at the Neve? I gotta get to a bigger chat screen. Yeah, here it is. The Neve 8424 at all? Been considering purchasing that board. I think it fits my needs and it has recall. You can motorize faders, 26 channels, 1073. Yeah, I saw the console. It looks like a pretty good console. I don't know how many preamps it has in it, but you may not need that. I didn't realize that had motorized fader with automation in it. I don't think that does. Does it? Maybe it does. I don't know. I did see a video on it. I saw, I think a Neve promo video or something for it. It looks really cool. I don't know how much that console is, but I mean, I don't see how you could go wrong with a Neve console, right? I don't see how you could possibly go wrong. Is the sound going to be great? It's going to be fantastic, I'm sure, as long as it fits all your needs and you have, I don't know if that, again, does it have all the, you know, what does it have for EQ and routing and all that stuff? As long as it fits all your needs, I'm sure it's a fantastic desk. But I have not used it. Trip Killer says, workflow. Oh, what is your chain from the SSL to the stream? Oh, okay, cool. Good question, man. Okay, so this is how this works. So the way I have this set up is just the way I would normally mix, meaning that the audio's coming out of the DAW, right? Let me just walk you through the whole thing just in case someone else has another question. Comes out of the Quantum 4848s, right? All, in this case, we're only using 32 channels, but all 32 tracks in the DAW. Let me just show you that camera here. And let me just show you this to make sure I answer. So here's all my output matrix. Here's all my tracks that are in the session. And those are all being routed out the individual tracks of the PreSonus Quantum 4848. And then from there, it's obviously coming down to the console. Everything's being routed into the SSL. It's being spilled out across the console. And then it goes to the output section of the console, and it's going to come back in on, let me go back to camera 5 for you. It's going to come back in on a print track here on an input, right? So if I play back this audio quickly, you'll hear it. Okay, so you see it comes back in on the print track, right? And then that print track, hopefully you were able to see that, that print track in Studio One, in my console view, is where the final stereo print would be, which is over here in yellow. And then from there, I'm actually using a send and I'm sending it to a bus, an empty bus that I created called Video Audio Print. And this Video Audio Print is being routed out to outputs on my Quantum, a separate set of dedicated outputs 3 and 4. So I can control with this fader right here, the level that's going into the stream. So the console audio, I can control the level of that on its own fader. And then from there, let me go back to camera 1. Then from there, it goes out 3, 4, balanced, a 1/4 inch out, left, right. It goes over there and into, I have an audio interface that I'm using. It's called the Rodecaster Pro. You've probably seen it on YouTube. It's Rode makes a podcasting audio interface with mixer units. And what I'm using that for is for 2 things. So the SSL is going into 2 inputs on the Rodecaster Pro. And then from there, I have a fader, again, where I can control the volume. And that is going to my, right next to it, which you can't see it. It's going to the Blackmagic Video ATEM switching unit. Actually, you know what? You can see it. Watch what I'm going to do. We're going to do this test. Watch this. So I'm going to go to camera 7, and I'm going to pick up this little camera, the GoPro, and I'm going to bring it over here and see if you guys can see it. So right out of right out of the SSL. Again, the lighting is not great, and I apologize for. Here's the Rodecaster Pro. My voice is coming in on channel 1. On channel 3 and 4 is the SSL. Out of this Rodecaster Pro, it's going into the 2 mic preamps on my ATEM switcher, which again, I apologize for the bad lighting because I don't have lighting on over here. But this is my video switcher that I'm switching from the Stream Deck on the console. It has 2 mic inputs here, 1 and 2. My voice is coming in on 1, the DAW is coming in on 2, and the output of this, let me bring back here, put my camera back. The output of that is going, oops, on, go camera 1. The output of that ATEM is coming into my laptop on my streaming software, and that's how you're able to not only see all the different cameras, but also hear the audio coming out of the SSL and my voice. So everything is coming from the console over to the Rodecaster Pro, both voice and console audio, and then being sent on 2 separate inputs, and then being outputted to the Blackmagic ATEM switcher. And the only reason why, if people want to know, well, why do you need to use the Rodecaster? Couldn't you just go right into the Blackmagic switcher? Why do you have that Rodecaster, that interface? You don't really need it. The only reason why I have it is when we're not doing live streams like this, and I'm doing all the pre-recorded videos that I do here, the routing is exactly the same, but the Rodecaster allows me to internally record the audio on an SD card. So I get my voice and the console. So if, as a safety, so if the audio on the Blackmagic switcher, if the audio for the video gets corrupt or whatever, clips or whatever, I have a backup copy of both audio and video so I don't lose it. That's the reason why it's routed that way, if you want to know. So it's not as complicated as maybe that it sounds, but it took a bit. And then again, because all the video switching audio and everything is over there, the only way I can control everything from a live stream here is with the Elgato Stream Deck and write a bunch of macros that allows me to switch all the cameras like I showed you, and then allows me to turn my microphone on and off. So when I play back the audio in the room, you don't get a feedback loop, because in order to do this and really mix, I can't be tied to a set of headphones, and I can't be tied to a broadcast microphone, or if there was a shotgun mic, you'd still have the same problem. I didn't want to do this stuff on headphones. I wanted to listen to my monitors in the room. So that's how it's being done. And so the only thing that's ever finicky is this Stream Deck. That's the only thing that's finicky. So, but it works. Stephen L says, streaming software, OBS? No, I'm using Ecamm Live. I used to use OBS and it was very finicky. Ecamm Live is a lot more stable for me. And the other thing about Ecamm Live is you can stream in 4K, which is well, you can stream in 4K, yes, which is what we're doing. So it's not 1080, but there is some limitation around the Blackmagic ATEM, because that only really streams in 1080, but I won't get too into that. But yes, Ecamm Live I like, because Ecamm Live is a lot more simplistic for me than OBS, although you could do the same thing with OBS. But when I used to use OBS, I had a lot of, not a lot, but pretty consistently, like sometimes OBS would work and sometimes it wouldn't work as well, and there was kind of finicky, because it's free and it's an open software, so it doesn't get a lot of support, where Ecamm is a paid program, but it's much more stable, and I don't have any of the issues that I used to have with OBS from time to time with Ecamm. So in order to do all of this, even for just recording the videos that you see on the channel, to do all of this, there's a lot of little moving pieces, and the less things that are inconsistent, the better. So I pay for Ecamm. And Ecamm doesn't really cost that much money. I think it's like $250 a year, but you get free support, and I can run it on 2 different systems at the same time for 1 license. So I run it over here when I'm working with you guys, and then when I'm working on the Home Recording Made Easy channel, I can run Ecamm over there as well. So it's not too bad. So I hope that answers your question. It's a long-winded answer if you said, how's the routing? So anyway, let's see. Yep, David SJ is in, I think he's ripping apart his studio today. He was here yet, well, you guys know, he was here yesterday. Today's what day, Monday? No, he was here Saturday. And we did a live stream together. And I watched that live stream back and I really was disappointed with this freaking laptop and the fan noise, man. I'm gonna fix that problem, I promise. It's just a matter of I'm waiting for the new MacBook Air to come out. It may not come out for several months because I gotta get a bigger screen. And I'd like to get, I could just get the MacBook Pro, the new one. I don't think the fans will be an issue, but it's pretty expensive. The MacBook Airs are cheaper, so and the MacBook Pro's overkill. I considered buying another Mac Mini, which would be even a lot cheaper, to just run the stream, and then just put a separate monitor on the desk, like it's just a regular, 27-inch screen or 22-inch screen, and when I'm not using it, just take it away. But we'll see. Atmosphere audio, how is the latency between the cameras? I don't notice any latency between the cameras except for the GoPro, except for this one here. This one here, there's a little bit of latency. And so in a live stream, it's not that big of a deal. In a pre-recorded video, when I use that, it has to be adjusted about 7-8 frames to stay in sync with the audio that's going on. So if I'm showing you the VU meter and you're looking at the compression and it's dancing, if I don't adjust that video, if I don't slide it and adjust the frames, then when you're hearing the music, it's not synced up with the needle, which is okay, but it's not right. If we're we want it to be in sync. For the live stream, I don't know, I don't know, but that's the only one. Other than that, there's no real latency. I'm using all the other 1, 2, 3 cameras that you have here, this camera, and this camera. Those 3 cameras, those are all the same camera. Those are Sony a6600 DSLRs, and they're all using the same, or actually no, this camera here and this camera are using the same lens, which is a Sigma 16 mil lens, which is really great in low light. And then this camera here, the SSL cam, that is a Sony camera, but I'm using a Tamron 11 to 24 millimeter because in order to get the whole SSL in order to get the whole board in so you can see it, I had to be able to use a zoom lens, not a prime lens. And so that camera's got a different lens on it. And they're all running HDMI over to the Blackmagic switcher. So it works. I mean, I've been running this setup for videos for quite a while, but this is the first time we're trying to live stream with the console. The first time. So yeah, so that's pretty much what the setup is. And that's what the setup's gonna be. And it'll be pretty cool, So we'll be able to, be able to do things where we can, we can play back, some audio, some drums. I can EQ some stuff. I can throw a compressor. Like right now, I think I got it down to a drum. I got all the drums routed down to the drum bus here with nothing on it. There's no EQ, no compression. But on this drum bus, I have the Wes Audio NG bus compressor, which we can control with a plug-in in the box, and then it's patched into the API 5500 EQ, which is in bypass mode right now. So let me show you a little of that. So I'll shut my mic off and.
Will you move me? I can shake it. There's something going on, and I can take it.
Okay, so here's our first problem. This is good. I don't know why we're not getting any signal to the NG bus. Let me wheel myself over here and check the patches. I did this very quickly today, so my guess is I did something wrong when I patched these things in. We're going out, going in, and we're going out. It's 43, 44, is it not? 42. Oh, no, it's not. I'm in the wrong damn... See that? I'll show you guys with the other camera in a second. I did that wrong. It's 1314, not 4243. No wonder it doesn't work. So we're going to go in 1314. And then we're going to go, let's see, out there into the API, which right now is bypassed, but we can unbypass it. And then out of there, that should work. Let me show you. Yeah, so I'll switch the camera. See, that's going to be one of the other problems too. It's being able to remember to switch all the damn cameras and turn everything on and off. It's going to take a little practice. So anyway, so we have the SSL console coming out here on the patch bay, bus 1, and then bus 1 is going into the NG bus compressor, which we're going to control with a plugin, which is down here. Again, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that. And then from there, we're going to go out into our API 5500 EQ, which is here, which right now is in bypass. And then what we can do is we can control everything from a plugin like this. So here's the West Audio bus compressor. So that's something like that. And I think I got it leaning more left right now because nothing's pans, nothing's really working. So yeah, so that's how we're gonna do it. Let me see if I can just dial this in and fix this, making sure we get everything to the center. So I'm gonna turn the mic. Yeah, so you know the other thing I'm noticing too, it's a futzy cable. So what I'm finding too, I have all my TT patch cables are all HOSA, and I can't tell you how many cables have now gone scratchy and bad. So I have to buy more high-end cables. I've been reluctant to do that because they're very expensive, but I'll tell you, I must have a dozen in the last year that they're real scratchy and they cut in and out, and that's why I was leaning a little more left, because one of those cables is scratchy. So anyhow, So like, kind of like that. I don't know again how that sounds, but you know, kind of like that. So the biggest challenge for me is going to be making sure, well, challenge number one is making sure that my voice over mic is off when it's supposed to be. And then challenge number two is the different camera switches, because it's all just me, right? So probably won't do lots of camera switches. It'll probably be, you know, more selective camera switching, just so I could show you what's kind of going on. Or if you guys have a specific question and you said, hey, can you show me the plugin for the NG bus compressor? I can say, sure, here we go. Here it is. Now it's on the screen and you can see it, which is really great. This is a great compressor, by the way. We talked about this in the last live stream. Someone that was here said they had this. If you're looking for a stereo bus compressor that's killer, 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 I use these pretty much on a drum bus most of the time, but on the master bus, on the 2 bus, this thing is awesome. Awesome. Not only because it's the, you know, it's really a VCA, it's the SSL in stereo, but you have this thing called the total harmonic distortion circuit, which is variable to give you more or less distortion. You also have this circuit here in red called the iron circuit. It's a transformer, and when you engage the transformer circuit, the makeup gain knob, because how hard you hit the transformer, and then you can also, when you hit it harder, the volume's going to get louder, so you can regulate it with the pad. When the iron circuit is disengaged, then it just works like a typical makeup gain that you would on any compressor, and then the iron pad becomes disabled. So this is a really, really great compressor, and as you can see, what makes it really special is that it's all controlled with the plug-in. You don't need to go down and turn the rack on and off. So let me just demonstrate the total harmonic distortion circuit and the iron pad for you, just so you could hear it, again, as part of our test. So here we go. So there you go. So that's kind of, you know, some of the stuff that we could try to do. So killer bus compressor, by the way. If you're in the market for, it's about $3 grand. They're pricey, super versatile, sounds great. The digital control is awesome. Trip Killer says, is there a tablet option like a Touch OSC So you can do those Elgato Stream Deck stuff wireless. I don't know. Well, honestly, wireless is great when it works. I would much rather have everything hardwired if at all possible. This is hardwired with a USB cable. You just don't see it because it's run down through the console. And you said an iPad mini would be the same footprint. Yeah, again, I would rather, well, you mean instead of the Stream Deck? I like the Stream Deck, and when it works really well. It does work. It's just like when I haven't used it in a while. So when I first started, booted it up today to try to do this test, I had to go back in and reprogram the macros, which is kind of weird. But other than that, it does work. It does work. So yeah, so I don't know. Hopefully the sound sounds okay, at least with the console here, that it sounds the way you would expect it to sound. Again, none of this is mixed. There's no EQ. There's nothing. It's just, it's a raw session. So it doesn't sound great because it's not mixed. That's the point. And when we do, the gear demo thing where we're going to kind of bring out a piece of gear, we're going to, just do a little bit of EQ and then that's it. Want to use raw audio, see what the compressors do, what the EQs do, that kind of thing. So that's it. So it looks like it runs, Let's see, the idea being that you could carry it with you to each area. Oh, you mean for the camera switches? Yeah, I guess that you could do that. But I would think for these live streams, I want to do as few camera switches as possible. That's what I'm kind of hoping, because if I got to get into switching, whether I could take it with me or, switching cameras all over the place, it's going to get to be too much. So it's really just this camera for the most part. You really don't need to see the DAW all that much unless there's a plugin. If there's no plugin, there's no reason for me to show you the DAW. There's nothing happening in the DAW except all the faders are at 0 and it's coming out. There's no plugins, there's no nothing. So unless we were using a plugin, or if I was showing you an organization or a workflow, DAW thing, there would be no real reason to put the DAW on the screen. So that's one camera I really don't need to use. So it's this camera. Yeah, maybe occasionally the SSL over the top of the console, that would make sense. And then the rack cam, the GoPro, I think is helpful if we're doing something at the rack so you guys can actually see the gear, or I can make an adjustment or a patch or something and then show you what it is for a split second. But I think the main camera would always be this camera here, because no matter what I do, you're not going to see every individual EQ move in detail. You're never going to see that. And I don't think we need to do that here anyway. At least I don't think so. So yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. And then, like I said, the next live stream that we do, we're going to probably start with the DBX 160 because it's an easy compressor. I'm going to get it out of the rack, I'm going to rig it up so I can just sit it on right on the console on like a little piece of foam or something. So it's right here. And then this camera back here, this camera, I'm going to move up here so it's right on the gear so you can see it. And it's right here, right at my arm's length. I can tweak it. And then depending on what we're listening to, I can take it in and out, bypass it either at the channel itself or on the unit itself if the unit has a bypass like the DBX does. And then there's no camera switching to really do, because I can set up a picture-in-picture where you can see the gear in the corner, and then you can see, this camera or whatever camera, you could see two things at once, and there shouldn't be a bunch of camera switching that has to happen. At least I think that's how we're going to start, and then we'll see how it goes. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how you guys like it. If it's something that you guys like, and if it's cool, and if it's something that you guys want to do more of, well, then we could do that for every piece of gear in this rack at one point or another over the course of the next however long, where we can really get in there and learn how, not only how to use the gear that we're talking about, but most importantly, which I think is so important, which is what I teach in all my private courses, which is, how really getting to learn it and what it sounds like on different elements. Like, where would you put that compressor and why? and what do you prefer the sound on, right? So do you like it on a snare, or maybe you don't like it on a snare, and maybe, so I think the only way to do that is to pull up a mix and just patch it into all the different tracks and play around with it. So you get a chance to really learn how the tool works. You get a chance to learn what you like and don't like as far as the sound goes. And then you can make mental notes of that. So the next time you're doing a production, you'll remember, oh, that compressor sounded really cool here, or, this was really cool for this, that, or the other thing. And I think, and we'll find out because it's really based on what you guys like or don't like about this idea. I think that's more beneficial than just you watching me mix a song and turning knobs and telling you what I'm EQing. You know what I mean? I think that might be cool for about 15 minutes, and then I think it'd be like, okay, you're watching just another guy on YouTube mix. So what? Unless that's what you guys want. I think it would be better if we did that, but then we also, like I said, focused on a tool and got a little bit more information around that. That I don't see anybody doing. The only one that does something similar, but he doesn't do it with gear, he doesn't do it with mixing gear like we're talking about, and where I really stole the idea from, was from Charlie over at Ultimate Studios. He does that with recording microphones and stuff. Like, he will take 25 microphones out, and in a video or a live stream, he'll mic up, do a one mic drum recording technique with 25 different microphones, so you can hear the differences between them and you can audition microphones. And I thought, he does that. He did it with drums and with guitar amps and those kinds of things. And I thought, that would be a really good idea. Instead of, doing it with microphones, I could do it with gear. That would be really cool, So that's what I think we're going to do. And if you guys hate it and if nobody watches it, then we'll do a couple of those and then we'll do something different. We'll try something new. I'm just trying to bring different things to the channel that you guys might be interested in. And again, if you have any ideas of things that you want me to try to do, just let me know. And if I could technically make it happen, I'll try to make it happen. And if I can't, I'll tell you I can't for whatever reason, and we won't do it. But I want to try to bring you the content that you guys want to see, not just stuff that I think you want to see, because I don't want to waste my time or your time. So anyway, I think that's the basic gist of it. So let me know what you guys think. I could stay on here a few more minutes if you guys want to, if you guys, have any questions or whatever. I'm here. I don't know how many people we have here right now, probably 15 or so. But anyhow, this will give me enough footage to be able to watch back later and see how I like it, if anything needs to change. Coming up this week, if you missed the live stream Saturday, I think it's coming Wednesday, is the Dangerous Music analog to digital converter. So we can test printing the print track back in to Studio One and compare the sound of that print track versus what we currently do here, which is printing through our PreSonus Quantum. So that'll be an interesting video or 2 or 3 or 4, but that'll be interesting to see how that works and see if it sounds any different. And we'll probably use this session right here because I'll do a quick little massage mix on it, and we'll probably use that for that test. Because this song has everything: drums, acoustic, bass, organs, percussion, vocals, background vocals, 3 different sets of electric guitars, oohs and ahs, and it has all the different, elements of a mix that will be a nice, test session, I think, to do something like that on. So anyway, anything else? Anything you guys want to ask? If not, I'm going to head out of here. I hope you guys enjoy your holiday weekend from Memorial Day, and you guys get some relaxation in before you head off back to work. I know Dave is working in his studio. You think I'll be happy with the test result? Oh, good. Awesome. I hope it came out good. We'll see what happens when we do it for real, how well it really works. This stuff is such a pain in the ass, I'll tell you. The audio side is easy. It's all the video and all. It's really, really a pain. But I mean, I have fun. It's cool. It's cool. So. Is it me or did I notice an audio delay? Yeah, that's what I was saying between the GoPro and the main cam. Yeah, the GoPro, yes, and that's what I was saying a little earlier. Maybe you didn't hear, or maybe you missed me saying it, but on the GoPro, it's not perfectly in sync. It's a little off. and like I said, when I do pre-recorded videos, I have to actually take the GoPro footage and I got to move it about 4 or 5 frames to get it in sync. So the GoPro is the weakest link of the video system. The only reason why I'm using a GoPro and not using a camera like this, like the real nice DSLR camera, like the one I'm looking at here, is because I tried it. When you put it on like a thing and you want to pick it up and move it around, it's heavy and it's big. The GoPro's nice and light, but the GoPro has a little bit of a delay with the HDMI. It just does. And I know, and I've done some research on that, thinking, oh, maybe it's a setting or maybe I'm doing something wrong. And no, it's a common thing with GoPros. They're nice and convenient because they're small and they're light and they got the nice wide angle lens, but they suck for that. So yeah, it's just part of it. Again, when I do pre-recorded videos, it's not a problem because I'll just take the GoPro footage, knock it over. I think it's about 5 frames is what it's off. Knock it over 5 frames, it's perfectly in sync, it looks perfect. But for live, you can't do that. So I don't know, so we'll see. So I don't think that'll be a problem. I don't know that that'll be a problem for what we're gonna do with the gear, as I said, because like I said, I'm gonna bring the Pete, we're not gonna have it in the rack. I'm gonna take it out of the rack, I'm gonna extend this signal cables, and I already bought some additional power cables so I can plug it in. I'm plugging it in right here, right in front of me, or right here on a table or something, so it's right here. And then I'm gonna use the DSLR camera and it's gonna be fixed. So it'll be perfect and it'll be perfectly in sync then. It's only if I'm gonna use it like a selfie stick is where it becomes a problem. So anyway, we'll see. What about the DJI Action Cam? I've never tried it. So I don't know. I've only had the GoPro. The GoPro's nice in that I like that it's a nice wide angle so I could get up nice and close and it's nice and wide and you could see everything. I don't know if the DJI Action Cam is like that. I'll research it and take a look because you want something that you can get up and you can see. It has to have that nice big wide angle. That's what we need to have. So I'm not sure if that's any different than a GoPro. GoPro cameras are great, like if you're outside, action cam, beautiful lighting and all that stuff, and you don't care about live streaming and it's all like pre-recorded to the little SD card in the GoPro, it's great. It's fantastic for that kind of stuff. That's what it's made for. When you're trying to sync everything up and run it with a multiple camera system through a HDMI cable into a switcher, it works, as you guys saw, but it could be a little finicky. And I've even had at times where right now it's working. If I go to camera 7, it's working. But I've had times where in the middle of a recording, for no reason, that camera will go completely black. Like the HDMI drops, the signal drops. And the only way to fix it is to unplug it and replug it in. But you don't know that it drops unless you catch it. So what you don't see, oh, actually, maybe I can show you with my GoPro. If you guys don't get a chance to see behind the scenes. The only one that's ever seen behind the scenes is Dave. But if you look over here, what you can't see, let me see if I can switch the camera here, camera 7. So what you don't see usually is you'll see my main camera, but then up there I got a monitor. See the monitor? I got a computer screen up there. I can't go too far because the cables aren't really that long. But I have a computer monitor above the main camera, and that's a multi-view camera. So I can see all the different cameras and I can see what's going on. So if the GoPro goes out, if I'm looking at you and talking to you, I can see that the GoPro's not on, which is good. But what happens sometimes, oh, wires. Come on now, are you kidding me? There we go. Put you back. So I can see all the cameras. I can see all the video and see what's working and not working. The problem is I can't, if I got my back to this monitor and I'm over there at the rack with the camera and it goes out, I can't see it. So when you're working here all by yourself and you don't have a 2-person system, one person watching the video while one guy's focusing on the audio and focusing on you and focusing on the content, when I'm trying to focus on everything at once, sometimes there's gonna be things that are gonna go astray And hopefully you guys will be patient if that were to happen. Because it will happen, I'm sure. Hi Dave, are you going to revisit old video subjects? Specifically, for me, a revised aux routing using outboard and software reverbs and effects. These were good, but I understand that they're out of date. Yeah, we could definitely do that. So it's changed a little bit from the very, very beginning of the videos. A lot of the earlier videos on the channel, the ones where we were setting up the console and figuring out the routing and the gear, with most of the ones that you saw myself with Dave here, where we were kind of working together and doing those live streams. Some of that has changed, right? So some of the way, if you're just new to the channel and you're just coming in or just watching the old videos, you'll notice that if you watch the older videos and then watch these newer videos, everything is completely different. I mean, totally. The only thing that's really, honest to God, the only thing that has stayed exactly the same is this console hasn't physically moved positions. Everything else in this room has changed. The speakers, the additional video setup, oh, I think this monitor, the big screen here, that was always there. But the racks, where we move things, what gear we had, the way I routed things out of Studio One, it is all different because we were learning as we were going. And a lot of the things that we thought we knew, or we thought we were going to try, or we had a preconceived notion of the way something should have been done, after working a little bit, you learn, oh, that works, this doesn't work, that works, this doesn't work. And so that was part of the whole journey of trying to bring to you guys the journey of learning how this stuff is done. So some of the things we said in those old videos, in some cases, come to find out we were completely wrong and we were completely false on what we said because we didn't know. We weren't trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We just didn't know. So we were learning on camera, and that happens, and that's totally cool. But yes, so the way we're using effects, just to quickly answer your question, but these are things that we can definitely do, is we used to, when we first started, it was all, we were just going to use reverbs and delays in the box, and we were going to route them out to the small faders. That was originally what we were going to do. And we did that. And what I found was I didn't like the sound of that. Something didn't sound right to me. I'm not sure if it was a latency thing or a phasing thing. I didn't like the sound of that. I thought, oh, that will be easy. I just put a reverb on a track in the DAW, route it out, because I got 64 inputs, right? So route it out to, use a bank of 8 and put all your effects on there. And then just blend it in. I didn't like the way that sounded. And I'm not really sure technically why it didn't sound right, but when I did some research on that in forums and stuff, and again, I take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt because most people on these forums have no idea what they're talking about, and they like whatever. But anyway, I got a couple of sources that I knew that they said you really don't want to do it that way. The sound isn't right, and my guess is it's a latency thing. So we ditched that, and we said, well, we have stereo aux, 4 stereo auxes on the board. Why don't we use those for hardware reverbs and delays? And that's what we ended up doing. So now we have two different reverb units, the Audioscape XL305 and then the Neve AMS that I use for drums. And those are the 2 reverbs that I use for most of what I do. Then we had 2 different delay units here at one time. We had the Line 6 Echo Pros. I had 2 of those units, and I was putting those on the other 2 returns, and whenever I wanted delay, I had like a 1/4 note and an 1/8 note delay, and I would use that. And then what I found is that after about 6 months, I really wasn't using those delays as much because the Line 6 Echo Pro was kind of a pain in the ass to program. The manual's this thick, and it was just, I didn't like it. So I said, well, I'm not going to do that. So if I want to use delay, maybe I'll have to go back to using it in the box. And I sold the 2 Line 6s. And then when I started to use, there's only a couple of delays that I use. The one that I tend to like a lot is the CLA Epic by Waves, and I also like the Sound Toys Echo Boy. But what I then dawned on me, I said, well, what if I put the delay on, let's say it's a lead vocal. For example, what if on the track, and again, I'll show you. Hey, we're here, we're live streaming. So if I go to this camera, so let's say I wanted to put a delay on a vocal, right? So I would get something like, one of my favorite delays, as I just mentioned, is the CLA Epic, right? I just passed it. Where is it? Here it is. And then you would say, well, wait a minute, Dave. You're going to put the delay on as an insert. Wouldn't you normally do that as a send? I go, yeah, but you know what I started playing around with, and it works quite well, is I just put it on as an insert last in the chain. I just use the mix knob, the wet dry knob, to just dial in as much delay in this example as I want. Now, some of you will say, and you're right, well, that means now, Dave, that delay, if it's coming down to the console and you're EQing the lead vocal, you're also EQing the delay or the reverb if you were using it as a reverb or whatever. That's true. But what then you could do if you didn't want to do that is after that delay in the box, you could just put an EQ on it. You can EQ that out if you really wanted to. Honestly, I didn't really find a need to really do that because when I'm using something like a delay on a vocal or a reverb on a vocal where it's really subtle, the EQ part of it really didn't bother me that much. At least I haven't come across a situation where that little trick didn't work. And then that way, I can just use the wet dry knob to dial in the amount of effect that I want, and it comes right down to the channel, and it's no big deal. I don't need to have hardware. I don't need to route the delay out to another fader and blend it in where it sounded kind of wishy-washy. You didn't like the way that sounded. That's what I'm kind of doing for mostly delays now in the box, but the reverbs are all being done on the board with the two hardware units for the most part, and they're being dialed in per channel with the auxes. So that's the way it's currently working. Maybe over time I'll do something a little different. So yeah, I mean, it works. It certainly works. It's not that big of a deal. And again, if you really found that in that particular example, that was a big deal because you're EQing the delay when you're EQing the vocal or the reverb, and I don't like the way that sounds, and this, that, the other thing, if that's really a problem in a specific situation, what I could do, which I haven't done yet, but is certainly possible, and it wouldn't take me any longer than an extra 5 minutes to do it, would be before you put the delay on your vocal, I process with EQ and compression my lead vocal. I just directly print the track back in with the EQ and compression baked in. Then I bypass any insert, flatten, or bypass the EQ on the channel. Then I could put the delay on in the box, and I don't have that problem. So you could do that, and I could do it as a traditional, send the vocal in the box to a reverb or however you want to do it. So there's other workarounds that you can do. It's it's an extra step or two for sure, but you're not like, oh my God, it can't be done any other way. You're locked into one way. Well, you're really not. So that seems to work, at least for now. So that's the way we're doing that now. But yeah, there's probably other videos early on where the workflow has changed, and I'll either going to update those videos, or that could be part of a live stream as well to maybe update the workflow a little bit. And one of the things that I definitely want to do in the future, it'll probably be a pre-recorded video, and I think I'm going to do it right after we get through the dangerous music converter test, whether we keep that converter because there is an actual sound difference, or we send it back because there's no sound difference between that one I'm currently using. That's to be determined. But once that is settled, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another pre-recorded video for the channel to show you everything I just kind of talked about, but maybe in a little bit more detail, the whole routing and workflow, how it's routed out, show the matrix, show my template, show how it's routed out, and kind of walk everybody through the whole signal path of how all this stuff is done, because it is a little different than what it was before. So I hope that I know that's a super long-winded answer to the question and probably a lot more information than what you really wanted. You're very welcome. Thanks for those answers. Great channel. That's awesome. Yes, I will also keep none of the old videos are going to be pulled down because it really is kind of like a working document. It's a working learning tutorial. I won't pull any of the old videos down because the old videos are still are valid and still are. You can still, some of those things we just talked about where the process has changed. It's not that the old process wouldn't work still and you couldn't do it that way. You could. I just found better ways for me to work, and that's why things have changed. But those videos are still accurate. I mean, the information is accurate. The thing that I said a little earlier where we were wrong on the way we were setting up the workflow. Not that we were wrong, we changed. I think that's a better way to say it. We didn't give any information that wasn't accurate. We just changed the way we thought we were going to do things. That's really the more accurate way to say it. Because if I did a video and the information was completely false, meaning it would drive a new viewer to do something that was incorrect or inaccurate or wasn't going to help them, then I would pull the video down because I don't want to put out misinformation without, but I don't think we have any videos like that. We just have workflow changes to better improve and suit my own personal workflow needs. That's all. So anyway. So I plan to keep the old videos up unless I come across a video or someone hits me up at one point and says, hey, I was watching this video and this is not, you don't want this information out there. Then I would pull that video down and re-record it in a way that makes sense. George says, hi, George. I never realized your setup was so complex. We appreciate the effort you do for your viewers. Oh, thanks, man. I'm telling you, it is. It's a lot more going on here than what people realize. I mean, the only one that really knows is Dave, because he's the only one that's been here that sees everything that you can't see out of the camera frame. And I mean, he's even walked in here and goes, I can't believe, I was talking to someone yesterday privately on a stream, another colleague of mine in this business as well, and he does a very similar thing. And we were talking about, some of the, when things aren't working right, he'll reach out to me and say, hey, have you had this problem? How do you fix it? And I'll do the same with him. And it's usually around the video side. It's never around the audio side. It's always around the video side. And we were talking about, how he, like myself, really for the most part, there's only one person that works here, me, that's it. The only other one that ever comes in this room with me is Dave, and that's only on a semi-regular basis. He's not here all day. We're not a two-person full-time working crew. I'm working here by myself, and there is more stuff in this room to make all this happen for one person. It's unbelievable. Like we were joking yesterday, in this room, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 different computer screens in this room to make all this run. 9. Think about that. Only one of them is for the actual session in Studio One. There are 8 other computer screens throughout this studio that I have to have on and active at all times, no matter what I'm doing, to know what the hell is going on here at a glance. Because like I said, there's nobody here running the video side. Like when you see a lot of the other larger YouTube channels, they're very fortunate, a lot of them, in that, who you see on camera, there's 4 other guys or 3 other guys or 2 other guys in the room that are running multiple cameras, running switchers, checking social media. There's usually a small team of people that do those productions. There's not too many of us where it's just the person you see on the camera, who you see is the person that's actually running all the technical things at the background at the same time with all these moving parts. And so, yeah, I'm glad that you guys appreciate it. And I have fun doing it. I'm not complaining. At times it could be very frustrating. And at times I just say, what the hell am I doing? I'm just, I'm putting more gray hair on my head than I really need to. But I will say, when it works, like right now, it's all working and everything is cool and it sounds, you guys say it sounds good and it looks good. it's pretty, I feel pretty satisfied. Like, wow, I can't believe I got all this stuff to work. So who knows? So I'm glad you guys appreciate it, man. I'm having fun. And again, hopefully I'm bringing something a little unique and different to help guys, in this, in the journey of your recording studio and in your journey with mixing and recording and hardware and all of that. Hopefully we're doing that. Daniel says, hi, Daniel. How are you, my friend? Hello, Dave. Hope you're well. Please, could you talk a little bit about how to create ambience for drums to bring a little behind the instruments without killing the punch or make it sound unnatural? Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and I teach this a lot in my mixing membership website, mixingmadeeasy.net. Oh, which, by the way, if you guys mix in the box of plugins and you want to really get into check out mixingmadeeasy.net, because we only open up enrollment twice a year, and it closes May 31st. Where right now you can join mixingmadeeasy.net and we get 12 mixing, we get new multi-track files every month. You get one-on-one time with me. You get to join a community. It's a private community, but it's the best way to get better at mixing. Anyway, I'm only telling you that because we're closing the enrollment again on June 1st, and it won't open again until January of next year. Anyhow. But one of the concepts I teach a lot there, Daniel, that kind of answers your question is about the use of reverb, especially around instruments, and how when I use reverb on drums, I think you mentioned drums, it's very, very subtle. When I use reverb in general, it's very subtle. So, pardon me. So on this rig, I'm using the Neve AMS in the rack. And I have a preset there that I've tweaked to give a little bit of ambience. And what I use is, I usually use somewhere between a 10 or a 15 millisecond pre-delay. So the pre-delay is one of the key aspects in order to, I think you said, to not killing the punch of or make the sound unnatural. By using that pre-delay, it allows the initial hit of the drum to come through unprocessed, and then the reverb kicks in, right? That's pretty standard. If whether you're using plugins or whether you're using hardware, the pre-delay is part of that. The other thing that I do on drums that I teach, I may not have mentioned it here before, but I'm sure in these live streams we'll mention it when we do demonstration, is 8 out of 10 times, again, it's not always, but my first go-to as far as how I set up reverbs on drums is I will normally only start with reverbs on the room and the overheads, depending on how much reverb's already built into those two recordings. But generally speaking, I'll only put the effects on those, and I don't usually put reverb on the direct mics. Kick, tom, hats, snare drum 50-50, and if it's on the snare, it is super incredibly subtle. Unless it's a track, like if we were doing an 80s hard rock metal track where you have the big cannon snare with the big decay, unless it's something like that. If it's general country, pop music, Americana, more modern music where the snare doesn't have a lot of verb on it, 50% of the time I don't even put reverb on the snare. Or sometimes I will copy and paste the snare in the DAW, and I'll blend them together to one fader on the console, and maybe on that second track there'll be some reverb and it'll be kind of feathered in, is a way to just give it a little bit of size. But the key for me is if I'm just soloing up a drum mix and I kick the reverb on, you should not struggle to hear it, but it should not be obvious. It should be when I stop it, maybe you hear a little bit of the tail. And when I use reverb in general, but especially on drums, I have to really focus to hear it. If it's really obvious to me, it's too much, because that's how it doesn't sound natural to me and you lose the punch. So by using the pre-delay, by being very subtle, and I also will typically not use reverb on direct mics, usually overheads and rooms first, sometimes snare, sometimes not. Does that answer your question? That's how I will typically do it. Most times, with reverb especially, when people are first cutting their teeth and learning their chops and stuff, most people use way too much reverb on everything. and you hear it and it sounds like it's in a wind tunnel, or it sounds like it's very hollow or very distant. So they'll have a rock track, for example, and the drums will sound very distant to the rest of the music because there's too much reverb on it, and they usually will use a room reverb, which not only makes it sound a little more distant, but you get that kind of mid-range, kind of hollow kind of a sound. So I talk a lot about that at mixingmadeeasy.net. So anyway, if you're into mixing in the box and you want to join a really cool community of people that are all striving to get better at mixing, go to mixingmadeeasy.net, because it's only, as a matter of fact, I'll put it in the chat here. Well, hold on. There's a video there describing the whole thing of what you get. So you could check out that link in the chat, and you could check it out because, like I said, the membership enrollment closes May 31st is the last day, and it's so dirt cheap, it's crazy. It'll cost you less than a cup of coffee a day. That's how cheap it is. So anyhow, I answered your question. Okay, great. Thank God. Okay, good. Hi, James. How are you? Let's see. Oh, I missed somebody here. The Mix Club. Hi, Mix Club. How are you, my friend? Hey, folks. Dave, I have 6 helpers in the studio. Oh, can you send 3 of them over here? Oh, do you need any cats? They help loads. No, I have a cat upstairs. Yeah. It's tough when you do all this stuff yourself. Hi, James. How are you, brother? Why? Oh, let me put your question up here. Sorry. Why don't you use a tube compressor among all those compressors? Well, what makes you think I don't have a tube compressor? Why do you have 2 types of hardware reverb? If you were to keep one, which one would it be? Well, as far as the compressors go, I got several. I got an LA2A tube compressor. I have the V-Comp, which is a stay level tube compressor. I have the West Audio Rio, which is a very mute compressor. I got 3 of them. I think I might, is that all I have? Those are 3. I'm looking, hold on. Yeah, 3. Yeah, so I have 3 tube compressors. The only type of compressor I don't have yet is a dial bridge. And believe me, I would love to get a Neve 33609. I would love to get one of those. Not yet, though. Okay, you asked me about the 2 different types of reverbs. If I were to keep one, which one would it be? Okay, so the 2 types that I have, as I mentioned, was the Audioscape XL305, which is a spring reverb, analog reverb. Love it. Doesn't sound like a typical spring reverb that you think about when you think of, like, say, like a Fender guitar amp where it sounds kind of springy and kind of boingy. Doesn't sound like that. It sounds more like a plate. It's done really, really well. I use that, except for drums, on every other track in the mix via the auxes on everything, just a hair. And we'll demonstrate that, one of the streams where we do a full mix, to where, you could barely hear it when I turn it off, but the cumulative effect of all the tracks gives the whole track a little bit of size, which I like. Here's the problem with the XL305. To use it on, well, I use it for that, and that ties up one of the hardware units. It doesn't have a variable or a controllable decay time. So if you use too much of that XL305, the decay is too long for most things. Unless, again, you're doing something like, a piano ballad and you really want that nice big wash, it's perfect for that. But outside of that general purpose. So because of that lack of the decay control, I use that very small doses. The Neve is where I can control all that stuff, and that's a digital reverb, right? The Neve is a digital reverb. The XL305 is an analog spring reverb. But the Neve allows me to control things like decay and other parameters like a digital plugin would be, and I use those where I need that, which is typically on drums. If I had to keep which one would I keep? It would be the XL305, and the reason why is because it's analog. I use it on every other track in the mix, with the exception of the drums, because I'm using the Neve. And if I didn't have the Neve, what I would probably use that, I would just use a plugin, probably, and I would be able to get by with it. So if I had to keep one of the two, I would keep the XL305 because it's analog. It sounds really, really great. It doesn't sound like any other plugin, and I more widely use it, but again, in a very subtle way. I've never tried things like a Bricasti or the expensive Lexicons. I've always wanted to try one, but those are just digital boxes. So how much different are those in a plugin? I don't know. But I know, you know, a lot of studios have, like I think it's the M7, the Bricasti, and they, you know, everyone says it's the reverb to die for. Maybe it is. Is it better than a plugin? I don't know. I've never tried one. If I ever had the opportunity to try it, I have two open auxes now on the board. I could patch it in and try it, and maybe at one point I will if I, you know, someone, I don't know, if I know someone that has one or if I could borrow one. I would love to try it. You know, one of the problems that I have, you know, doing some of this stuff is that the only way I can do that is I got to go out and buy the stuff, you know, and I'm not a channel, as we've talked about many times before. I'm not a sponsored channel. The channel's not big enough. I don't have companies sending me boatloads of gear to try. I don't get that luxury. So if I wanted to try a Bricasti reverb, I either got to know someone that would be nice enough to send it to me and let me borrow it, or I have to go buy it. And then if I don't like it, return it or sell it. So it makes doing those kinds of experiments and being able to bring everybody here, you know, showing you all the different gear, it makes it more challenging. So to answer your question, I would keep the XL305. Hi, Dave, just saw you were live. I have to get back later to get to the first hour. Always appreciate the information and experience that you share. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, thank you. Happy, good afternoon, Eagles Rage. Hey, Eagles Rage, I think you, aren't you and a couple other guys were talking a few streams ago about you guys wanted to send me some sessions. You wanted me to feature some of your guys' music. So reach out to me via email, send me just a quick MP3. It could just be a rough, just throw up the faders and let me just hear the production and the music. And if you want me to feature some stuff, if you have an artist or your own music, but as I said before, I think you were one of the people. There's a couple others that said they wanted to do that, but I haven't heard from those folks yet. Again, they have to be good quality recordings, good quality productions, you know, so we can focus on the techniques and the gear with the music and not fixing the production because it's a mess. Not that yours would be, but I'm just saying that. So again, reach out to me if you guys want me to. I'm always looking for stuff that I can use on YouTube that's not going to get me thrown off of YouTube for copyright. Daniel says the Artillery 305, 3609 sounds great. Oh yeah, that's a plugin though, right? I mean, I got plenty of Neve 33609 plugins. I want the hardware unit. James says, I also want to thank you for all your hard work and to make it available to us. You're very welcome. Like I said, I enjoy that. This channel is an education channel. Not only for you guys, but just as much for me, if not more so. The only way, you know, again, always talking about, you know, learning your tools and all that stuff. Well, one of the reasons why I want to do that series, to be completely honest with you guys, is that, yeah, I want to show it to you and show you the gear and that stuff because I know you guys like that. But honestly, it's also for me. It forces me to stop working on projects, to stop, you know, doing, you know, YouTube videos and stop doing the things and sit down with a piece of gear, a tool, and for me to get better at learning the tools. Because the only way I can bring the most accurate information that I'm capable of to you to help you guys is to really understand it myself. And the only way to understand it myself is to really get my hands dirty. So that's really one of the main reasons why I want to do that series, is because I want to force myself to do that. And the way I'm going to force myself is because I'm doing it for you guys, so I have to do it. And we're going to do it together. So I hope that works for you. Okay, Steve L says, oops, in the box, most mixers do reverb via Ascend. It's now hybrid. Yep. Where is the hardware reverb, insert or Ascend? So the hardware reverb, yeah, in the box, most mixers would do it as Ascend. Absolutely. Or again, like I said, you could do it as an insert and you can use the wet dry knob. But as I said a few minutes earlier, there's some other drawbacks, if you will, of doing it that way. But it could be done that way, and I've done it that way. But the hardware is done via the aux sends. So it's patched in. This console has 4 stereo auxes, and that's how it's being patched in. That's how it's being patched in. And it is post, you can make it pre or post EQ. And I have it post EQ, so it's not, so the EQ is not EQing the reverb. Does that make sense? Oh, hey James, thank you so much for the super chat. That's very kind of you, my friend. Thank you very much. Oh, no problem, Steve. Second time I am here. No ignorance at all. Ask questions, it's okay. Even if it's been asked 1,000 times. If you're someone new to the channel, I owe you a response, and I don't mind saying things more than once if it needs to be said. That's okay. Hey, Uncle Dave, hey. Do you master your mixes or do you send it to a mastering engineer? Gents from great greetings from the Netherlands. Hey, the Netherlands. If I'm working with a client 9 out of 10 times it goes to a mastering engineer. I can master my own mixes. It depends on the client and what they want. The clients with the bigger budgets, we will always suggest a mastering engineer that has a proper mastering studio. This is not a mastering studio. It's a mix room. It doesn't mean that I can't master, but it's always good to get the second set of ears. It's always good to get a mastering engineer, a real well-built built room that's made for mastering with the gear that's made for mastering, to take the mix and to put the little extra final touch on it. But I don't ever mix from an EQ, compression, sonic standpoint and say, well, we're gonna let mastering finish what I started. No, I'm gonna give you what I feel the final master ought to sound like, and then the mastering engineer is gonna take that and maybe tweak it a tiny bit and bring it up to proper level. And when we are using the mastering engineer, I will always request and have no problem getting the final master so I can hear what the mastering engineer did to my mix. And 9 out of 10 times it's fine. I mean, sometimes it's, sometimes the mastering engineer might do a little bit of a boost and maybe top end a little, or a little bit of a cut in the low mid or something, but we're talking minuscule. Usually the mix is the mix, and it's just brought up to, that is the final master, but that's what I do. Now, some clients will want, if the budget doesn't allow, and they'll say, can you master my song? Well, again, if we're talking about a single song and not an album, the single song, again, all I'll do at the end of the mix is I'll just make sure it's limited to the final volume, right? And that's it. It's not like I mix it and then bring it into another program and then add another EQ and another compressor, because what's mastering? EQ, compression if needed, and limiting, mostly. That's what it is. So, like I said, the mix is the master brought up to a final volume level. But I will always usually recommend to an artist that's serious and really wants it to be the best it can be, I'll always recommend the mastering engineer, because that's what they do. That's what they do. I do mixing, they do mastering. So that's usually how it's done. But it depends. Great, thanks, Steve. Eagles Rage. I sent you an email via the 20th from a home recording made easy and received an auto. Really? Oh, don't send it to home record. That's why I didn't see it, Eagles Rage. I'm sorry, brother. Don't send it there. You got to send it to Mixing Music Analog. There's a whole website, mixingmusicanalog.com. That's my mixing and mastering services. Email me through there. I apologize I didn't get back to you. I didn't see your email. Right. When you guys want to communicate with me through this channel, always do it through mixingmusicanalog.com, because that doesn't have an autoresponder. Those emails I see, the home recording made easy, I literally get 50 to 75 emails a day, every couple of days. So there's an autoresponder, because I can't respond to them all, because most of the people at Home Recording Made Easy, if you have not been to homerecordingmadeeasy.com, you should, especially if you work on the box. But anyway, that audience, generally speaking, are more beginners. They're more, they're not at the level that most of the guys that are here today are at. They're starting their journey. They're not here. The reason why there's 2 separate channels and 2 separate websites is because the audience are completely different for the most part and where they are in the journey of learning. And so when I'm working with you guys and we're talking about compression, I'm not here to show you how a compressor works. You know how a compressor works, right? That's why you're here. I might show you how a specific piece of gear works, but we're not talking about the basics. We're not talking about the fundamental frequency of a kick drum. That's over there. But I also, in those emails, Eagles Rage, I get a lot of emails about, hey, I just bought all this equipment from my home studio and I hooked it up and it doesn't work. Those kinds of emails. And I can't possibly answer all of those on a daily basis. I would have to hire a full-time person to do nothing but that. So if you want to email me for the mixing music analog stuff, hit me up through that website and I will see your email and I will respond to you within a day. So I apologize you sent something, Eagles Rage, and I didn't see it. And yeah, I'm sorry for the autoresponder, but that's why. Daniel says, I went to a studio here in Tokyo, which has a 33609 and the Arturia plugin. Not the same, but pretty close. Has the mojo to my ears. Yeah, I haven't tried that particular plugin, but I have the one by Universal Audio and I have the one by, forget the name of it. And it sounds really great. But here's what, again, my experience, and again, maybe the Arturia's a little different. I'd have to try it. Maybe I will try it just because you mentioned it. I have yet to hear a compressor plugin that sounds as good as the hardware. In any example that I've done, the plugin sounds good, the hardware sounds way better, and it has way more 3D. And so I'd love to get a real 33609 because of that, because I have enough 33609 plugins that sound really good, but I will check out this one because you mentioned it. When we talk about EQs, that's a little different. EQs, the gap is way closer, but in compression, it usually isn't. But I'd like to try it, but I may check out that plugin just because you mentioned it. Thanks for the info. Fanny Robert, Beats Bees Studios. Do you track on tape or DAW? Which is your preference and why? I only track in the DAW. I don't have a tape machine. In hardware, I have tape emulator hardware, the Neve 542s. I just don't have a tape machine. I've considered getting a tape machine at one point, and maybe at one point I will, because I'd love to experiment with it, but I do it in the DAW. So everything gets printed back to a print track. My preference would probably, well, I'd have to do it to a tape machine and compare it first. My preference would probably be tape, because who wouldn't want to do that? And I almost bought a tape machine a couple of years ago, right before the pandemic and the economy and inflation, all that nonsense that we're going through happens. When times were good, I was that close to buying a tape machine from Mara Tapes, a brand new reconditioned MCI, 1/4-inch 2-track. Was that close to buying it. And I didn't pull the trigger because of, it was just a business decision. Because it wasn't going to help me make any more money. I wasn't going to be able to charge a client anymore because I have a tape machine. It was really more of a personal curiosity. And I just held off. But maybe one day, who knows? Dave, when I mix into a limiter. I know it's a no-no, but when you mix live, do you use a limiter? I also don't mind the outcome. When I mix, do I mix into a limiter? Not typically, no. Not typically. My mixes are usually pre-mastering. Where my mixes end up typically is right around, it finishes off right around peaking around a -6, -4 dB. I don't push it to the limit. When the mix is done, I'll bring it up to the limit with a limiter, but I don't typically mix into a limiter. I know some people do when they like to hit it and clip it and all of that. And, you know, and if that's what you're trying to do, totally cool. But I usually will mix at a pretty conservative level and then bring it up in mastering later. Oop. Daniel says, true, all my hardware beats any compressor plugin. I have even the beloved Warm Audio Bus compressor. Would like to hear your opinion about the Artillery, though. I'll check it out. We just did Saturday. David, when he was up here, him and I we compared. He has a warm audio bus compressor. We compared that to the one in the console. The video's done. It'll probably be live in 2 or 3 weeks. I won't tell you what the outcome was. You'll have to watch the video, but we compared it. We didn't compare it to a plugin in that particular video, but I did do, Daniel, if I remember right, you'll have to check the channel. I could swear early on, and maybe I'll do it again, I compared that bus compressor to 1 or 2 other SSL G-Series bus compressor plugins. I think I've already done that test, but it's probably old. I probably should do it again. And if I remember right, the plugin, it was close, but it wasn't the same. Hey Dave, regarding the analog versus plug-in debate, have you ever compared the console high-pass filtering versus the DAW or plug-in? Oh no, you mean the high-pass filter? No, I've never compared that. I haven't even compared the EQ yet, although a lot of people have asked me to compare this SSL E-Series EQ to the plug-in. We'll do that eventually. My guess would be, if I had to guess based on what experience I have thus far comparing hardware to plugins, my guess would be if we were just comparing the filter in the plugin would be unbelievably close. You may not even be able to tell the difference. But I use it on the console because, well, when you have a console, it's so much easier for me to go boom, 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 boom. 5 seconds, I just did a high pass filter on 7 different channels that quickly. If I have to do that in the box, it's still not done yet and we're still talking. It's so much faster to do it on a console. This is what a lot of people that have never worked on a console don't realize because they've never worked on a console. Everyone gets really focused on the sound. Oh, well, you know, the plugin sounds just as good in certain examples like the one we just talked about, and I'm sure it does. But what you don't get is the workflow and the speed. The speed is so unbelievably fast. You know, if I'm sitting here and we're working on something and I need something, it's like boom, 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 boom. I mean, I just like that, it's done. I don't have to click on anything. I don't have to look at the screen and squint and look and open up the plugin and get the mouse or my surface control and map my plugin. You don't do it, right? Reach up, boom. Turn it up, turn it down, turn it up, turn it down. And you get the muscle memory just like this. So I don't even, like with EQ, I don't even know what frequency I'm at. I don't stand up and look at the little printing and look at what. I know that on my high frequency EQ on the SSL, the red knob. There you go, so you guys can see it. The red knob, I know straight up and down is 8K. And I know it goes up, you know, plus or minus 15 dB. And that's all I need to know. So I know I go from about 1K all the way up, 12 o'clock is 8K, and I just use my ears. I just turn up the gain and turn the frequency with both hands at the same time, just like this, until I hear what I want to hear, and then I stop. Where that EQ lands, what frequency it's on, how many dBs plus or minus, I have no idea, and I don't care. Because I don't look at it, it doesn't matter. So it's really, the workflow is what makes it so fast. And once you got the muscle memory down, it's very quick. But the answer to your question is, would the filter on this console sound better than the plug-in filter? I would be surprised if it sounded any different than the plug-in filter. I mean, different to where you wouldn't be able to hear it on a 1-track basis. You wouldn't be able to hear it. I wouldn't think. I never did that test, but that would be my guess. Hope that answers your question. No worries, Dave. I just sent my info back your way, so when you get a chance at some point, if you find anything you want to use, let me know. Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks, Eagles Raging. And I apologize. Oh, yeah, I see your email right here. Okay, I see it on my phone. And I will make sure that I get back to you sometime. Let me just double check it and make sure it's there. Come on now. My phone's updating. But I did see the notification. So I will get back to you, I promise. Thank you. Thank you again. Daniel says you compared the warm audio bus compressor to your West Audio NG one. Oh, you have the NG bus compressor like we used here on drums. Nice, right? You almost threw away the warm audio out of the window. I didn't because it was still better than most of the plugins to my ears. Here, the warm audio is not bad. It's not. That's all I'm going to tell you about the video that me and Dave just did. And we said it in the video. And I don't like warm audio. Dave likes warm audio. I don't. But I sat here and listened to the compressor and went, it sounds pretty good. And it does. But when you compare it to other gear, at least the gear that I've compared it to, it's not even close. Now, I am not surprised to hear that you think the NG bus compressor sounds way better than the warm audio. We didn't do that comparison here, but if based on what we did the other day, I would absolutely be shocked if the NG bus compressor didn't sound twice as good as that warm audio. But for people that, just for people's information that may not know, the West Audio bus compressor is $600. Or $700 brand new. No, the warm audio, excuse me. The warm audio is $600 or $700 brand new. The West Audio that he's talking about is $3,000. The SSL G series in this console, or the one that you would buy for your 500 rack, is normally $2,400 on sale right now for $1,200. So it's 2, 3, 4 times the cost of the warm audio. So you got to keep that in mind. It should sound better at 4 times the cost. It should. And it does. Now, whether that 2, 3, 4 times the cost is worth the upgrade, well, that's completely different for every person. Everybody's wallet is different. Their budget is different. It's subjective. The way they hear things is different. So then you got to, whether it's worth the extra 3 or 4 times the cost, that's everybody's individuality. But if you took all of that away and just said, just based on sound, which one sounds better? I'm sure the NG bus compressor sounds better. Steve asks, assuming the mixing the same songs after these few months since your SSL console, can you say that analog is better or on the same as in the box? Oh yeah, we talked about this last time. Okay, but again, you're new here. So I've been mixing on this console now about 2 years, regularly, multiple times a week, sometimes every day. At the same time, I work all in the box. I point over there because that's my in the box rig. I have 2 separate rigs. They're completely independent from each other, Steve. I don't do anything in the box on this rig. I don't do anything with hardware on that rig. Mixing music analog, homerecordingmadeeasy.com. So I work on them both every single week. And as I've said many times before, when I first bought a console and all the hardware, I didn't do it for sound. I did it for workflow. We're just talking about the speed, the tactile feel, having all the gear, being a geek like you guys are, having fun, right? That's why I did it. I didn't know, because I didn't know at the time, and I didn't care if the sound was 100% identical to working in the box of plugins. I assumed that it was going to be identical, or it was going to be so unbelievably close that it would be hard to tell the difference. That was what I believed because of all the stuff that you watch on YouTube and all the people that tell you it's exactly the same. And when people like Andrew Sheps and Michael Brower, 2 of my heroes, by the way, and other famous engineers that tell you, I sold all my hardware because it's in the box, and in the box, the plugins are so good, it sounds just like the analog. That's what I thought. And after about 2 months of working on this and doing all the things that we do here, back and forth, listening, not only is it not even close, in my opinion, this is far superior, in my opinion. It doesn't mean you can't mix good stuff in the box of plugins. Yes, you can. I say it all the time. I have a whole school, right? MixingMadeEasy.net. It's all about in the box and plugins, and we love plugins, and they're great. It does not sound like analog. It does not. It doesn't. How close is it? It's very subjective. And the reason why I say that with such conviction is because I'm one of the few people that I know that work with both every single day, so I can truly A/B them in an unbiased way, who's not trying to sell you gear, who's not sponsored by a plugin company or companies, who has no dog in the fight, and I make nothing, whether you work in the box, work with analog, whether you believe what I say, don't believe what I say, I benefit in no way, shape, or form. So I can tell you that there is no comparison. There isn't. Not only, forget the workflow is just so much more fun, and it's anyone that's worked on this stuff, you guys know. But the sound is not the same. It is way different. It's not better. I like it better. You may like the plugins better, and it's okay. Plugins are great. Can you use a combination of plugins that can emulate this workflow and get closer to the sound? Yes. I have a whole school that teaches you how to do that. But is it the same? It's not. I've tried to get it to sound the same. It's not. And that's the truth. And that's the truth. And some people will believe that. Some people will say I'm crazy. And most people that say I'm crazy are the people who have never really A/B'd them back and forth. And again, over YouTube, sometimes it's really tough, Steve. It's hard to do a YouTube video and always hear the differences, you know? But I mean, if you were in the room and you went back and forth the way we do here, you would hear a difference. And you'd be like, oh, wow. I'm surprised how much different it is. It's way different. It's way different. So that's what I tell people, but it doesn't matter because working in the box is great and I do it all the time and you can get fantastic results and lots of hit records are mixed all in the box with plugins. It is more about your engineering skills than it is the gear, that's for sure. But are you asking the sound? Is it the same? It's not even close. I don't care what any engineer on YouTube tells you, unless they've been able to, again, maybe some of those engineers have got a combination of plugins that they've got it so it sounds really close. And, you know, I'm not saying they're lying, maybe they're right. But unless you put me in the room with all their gear and their mixes in the box so I can listen back and forth, unless you can show that to me, I don't believe it. Because I haven't been able to get them even close. So, but that's just only one guy's opinion. But it's an honest opinion. I got a real tough time listening to an engineer who says, you know, I can mix all with the Waves plugin bundle and it sounds just like all my analog gear and I sold it all. And the guy's sponsored by Waves. I got a hard time listening to that. Right? Give me somebody who isn't sponsored, who that has nothing to gain. Give me that person and show me how it's the same. I'd love to know, and maybe some people have gotten it to the same. I haven't been able to do it. I don't know. Anyway. I also use hardware high-pass filters. Oh, cool. I did use the plug-in high-pass filters in the past. When I compared it to a single channel, the results were similar. But with 32 channels, you can hear a difference in the headroom. Yeah, now that would make sense. You're right. I left that out of the kind of the answer before. When you're working with analog, talking about analog versus digital, when you're listening to a track by track, like for example, you make a very good point. If we're listening to it on a snare drum and we're listening to the EQ on a snare drum versus, or a high pass filter versus the high pass filter on a plugin on a single track, it could be almost indiscernible or it's very, very subtle. But analog is a compound effect. So when you take 32 hardware EQs and I put that 32 same EQs in the box and put them all at the same settings and we A/B them back and forth, all those little 0.5% or 1% or whatever you want to subscribe to it compounds over a 32 channel mix. And then there's a difference. And this is why working with a console has so many benefits. It's not only fast to reach out and touch multiple things, but it's that accumulative effect across everything. Which is why when I do stuff, and we'll have to do another, someone asked earlier about a workflow video, and we'll have to do one again soon because my workflow has changed. When you have a 64 IO, I can mix with 64 faders if I want to. I don't. That's too many faders to manage. I will normally keep everything down to 32 to 48, usually at most times. But there are times where, and people will say, well, you know, no matter how big the session is, you can comp things more in the box and just bring it out to less faders. It's less faders to manage. So for example, if I had like, let's say a 30 track session in the DAW, and let's say 8 of those tracks were rhythm guitars, all playing the same part. And let's say it was rhythm guitars that were panned left hard, left and right to give a bigger sound. For example, a lot of people would take those 8 guitars, they would mix them in the box, they bring it out to a stereo pair and bring it out to 2 faders on the console. It's one way you could do it. Pan it left and right. There's your 8 guitars. What I do, if I have the fader real estate, I put all 8 guitars out on the console. And you say, well, why do you do that? It's harder, it's longer. You gotta manage 6 more faders. It's more to balance, recall all that stuff, right? Here's why I do it. Because I want every one of those guitar tracks, if I can, to go through 8 different preamps on the console. I want it to go through 8 different EQs on the console, 8 different high-pass filters. I want it to hit the fader circuitry on all of them. I want all of that. Because all of those little compound effects, like compound interest, builds up to where it gives you a little bit more of a unique, in my mind, a little bit more of a flavored sound that I like. So I want to spread it out as much as I can without going crazy. I don't want to manage 64 faders. That's a little hardcore. But again, I try to do the least amount of comping in the box as I possibly can. I want to use the whole desk. That's why I bought it. It doesn't make sense to me to say, well, you know, you got 32 faders or 40 faders, but you can really comp it and bring it down to 24 faders. Yeah, you could. Nothing wrong with it, by the way, if that's your workflow. But for me, I want those 8 guitars to hit 8 different sets of of analog signal path in the board. And I like that personally. But I understand your point, and you're absolutely right. It's an accumulative effect thing. 1-to-1, not so much. Let's see. Oh, Brower just admitted he started pulling out some of his hardware and gear for his master bus. And Michael Brower, I mean, look good. I always joke about Andrew Sheps and Michael Brower because they're the two of the most vocal when it comes to digital is just as good as analog is today, which I don't believe. But those are two, right, we know, world-class engineers that have done more in the first 2 or 3 years of their career than I'll probably ever do in all of mine. I am no way saying that I know this stuff better than either one of those guys. I do not. But what I will say, and they're 2 of my heroes, I love both of those guys. I watch a lot of stuff that they put out, and I learn a lot from them as well. Even if I don't agree with everything, I respect both of what they do. And I think the reason why those 2 in particular have maybe sold all their gear, they've been working on that stuff for, you know, decades and decades. And I think those guys have moved to a place in their career and a place in their life where they don't want to be tied to the boat anchor. They need to be able to mix in a hotel room, on a plane, or wherever. They need to be able to travel. They can't drag their console with them in all their gear. It's a pain in the ass when you work at the level that those guys work at. Totally get that. And the plugins have come a long way, and for them, they're able to get it close enough to where it works for them and their clients. And they have that ultimate flexibility. And I think just like with anything else, the technology has changed and they change with the technology. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't believe I don't believe they did it because it sounds just as good or just exactly the same. I don't buy that. I just don't. I don't buy it. And so, and now you'll start seeing some of the guys, well, maybe I'll go back and start pulling some gear out to my master bus. And then maybe there's a couple of pieces of gear they don't tell you about that's for their drum bus or for their vocal bus. Why would he be pulling stuff? Why would he be pulling some hardware out on his master bus if the plugins sound exactly the same? Why? Because they don't sound exactly the same. That's not good, bad, or indifferent, but that's the truth. And I just wish that more guys on the interwebs were honest about it. I mean, completely honest about it. And not just trying to sell you a plugin. You know what I'm saying? I don't have any plugins. I don't have any signature plugins. If I had a bunch of signature plugins, I was be paying enough money. I guess I'd be telling you the plugins are just as good too. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, but I love Andrew Sheps and Michael Brower, man. I love them. They're not my favorite mix engineers. I love the style of Bob Clearmountain and Chris Lord-Alge better, just for my own personal taste. But listen, man, those engineers are world-class engineers, man, and I respect and love everything they do. And I'm not saying that they're lying to you on YouTube. I'm just saying that, I don't know. I just don't believe I don't believe anything that Andrew Shep has mixed solely in the box sounds the same as his old classic modified Neves with all the gear that he used to work with. I just don't believe that. I'm not saying he's not telling the truth. I'm saying I don't believe the sound is exactly the same. I would have to hear that to believe it. I just don't. Anyway, enough of that, because I've said that a bunch of times. Maybe those mixers get better produced tracks. Well, certainly when you talk about any of the mixers at that level, even the analog guys, even the Chris Lord-Alges or the Bob Clearmountains or the Tony Maseratis or the Andrew Sheps or the Michael Browers or the who's the other? I just watched a video of him last. Vance Powell, another one that I love his stuff. Joe Barisi, all those guys are freaking amazing, amazing engineers. But 99.999% of the sessions that they're working with at the level that those guys are working at, they're working with artists and musicians and recordings that are top shelf, right? They're not working with crappy recordings. They're working with world-class stuff that, and I get a lot of those here too, by the way. I just can't share them on YouTube. But I've said to you guys before where I've got a really good session, all I do is put the faders up. I don't touch EQ compression, nothing. The record sounds 70% finished. Why? Because the recording is stellar. Why? Because the musicianship and the performance and the production is top notch. And if you don't think all those guys that are mixing, some of them that are mixing in the box of plugins are not working with sessions like that, of course they are. Of course they are. But that's neither here nor there. It's still the gear, you know, what tools do you use and what does it sound like? But yeah, the recording is everything. It really is. Great, I think I'm subjective too because I was a front of house guy for many local bands and analog was always better. Oh yeah, you know, when I was doing front of house sound, Steve, many years ago, you only had analog. There was no digital anything back then. When I got out of live sound, the digital mixers like the PreSonus Studio Live and the Behringer, those were just coming into the fold where I was working at some clubs where we were using the digital mixers. But prior to that, it was always analog boards, analog gear. That's just the way it was. Now, in a live setting, again, without having the experience, but I would probably think that in a live setting, the digital boards with the digital plugins and the digital way of doing live sounds might be far superior. It might be good enough because of the simplicity, the setup and tear down and all the recall stuff and everything that goes on than doing it old analog. Because in a venue, you're dealing with the room and it's not the best sound and it's not like mixing, mixing a band in a room is way different than mixing a band in a controlled environment like a controlled room. So I could see where the digital stuff, like if I was running sound for local bands, I would have a digital mixer and everything would be digital, just for simple ease of use. Even if the analog sounded a little better, in that particular scenario, I would lean on the digital way more, I would think. But I haven't had a lot of that digital experience because I got out of that game when analog was still the only way to really do it, you know? But yeah. And if you grew up on analog, you have a sound that you're familiar with hearing. And so you may prefer the sound of analog to digital. Again, it's not that digital doesn't sound good, it sounds great. But if you grew up on the analog sound, it has a sound that's different. That's all. Okay, those guys' recordings not done in a home studio for sure. Oh, you mean those engineers? I think some of them are probably done in home studios, you know, because every artist now has home studios and probably really nice home studios. But, you know, when they probably, you know, artists that record at home in their home studio, at least, you know, famous artists, they may have a nice, really home studio and they have an engineer that comes in that while they're recording, records them, you know, that kind of a thing. You could do really great stuff in a home studio digitally, recording-wise. You really can. Okay, Steve, take care, brother. Thanks for stopping by. Analog, Mix Club says, analog is so wide, when you dig into the console, it just comes alive. It's true. I've never got that mojo in the box. Me neither. I sold my console in the 2000s, and I'm sorry I did. I'm still chasing the vibe and workflow. Yeah. Coming up 2 weeks, 3 weeks, on this channel, 2 videos. We compared, I ran audio just through the preamp. No EQ, no compression. Printed it back in. So you can hear the difference between just running audio through this board. I think we did 30 channels back in compared to audio not run through the board. That was test number 1. The following week's video was test number 2, where I took those same tracks that I ran through the preamp, and then in the box, I took an SSL channel strip plugin on the tracks that we didn't run through the preamp and used only the preamp of the plugin, so you can compare the preamp of the plugin to the preamp in this desk. And you'll hear the video, you'll see what I say in the video. They're not the same. They're not. This thing does more than just, remember, a console, yes, it's a preamp, it's an EQ, but it's also a big compressor. It's a saturator, it has a sound, it has a color to it. You may not like that sound or color, but it has one. And that's just the way it is. It's just, there's a sound. There's a sound. It also makes you move on the console that push the mix in the direction. I can never create that in the box. I'm still trying to find where my mouse is on the screen. Here's what I found. The biggest difference was, and you're absolutely right. Remember we were talking about speed and how it's fast? Let me move this out of the way a little, right? So when you're working on a console, for people who have never done it before, forget sound for a second, okay? It becomes more of a creative thing. I'm never looking at the screen, never. I set a loop, it's up there. The only reason why I got such a big screen is when I do all my edits and my cleanups, because I'm blind as a bat, I need something big. Do you notice that a lot of studios don't even have a screen? They have a sidecar with their Pro Tools session. They don't even want to look at a screen. When they're looking forward, they want to be listening to speakers. They don't want this distraction. I didn't do that because I like to have the big screen because I can't see, and because this room is too small, I can't have a permanent sidecar. But anyway, never looking at the screen, right? But when you're here and you're moving up and down and you're moving around and you're pushing, you're performing a mix. It's like playing an instrument. It truly is, okay? You're driving the console. You're not thinking about, let me open the plug. I'm going to give you an example. Why? Because I have another camera. And this is for people who have never done this before. For people who have done this before, you know exactly what I mean. Let me go back to that same example on the lead vocal, and let me put up a channel strip plugin, which I love doing, by the way. when I mix in the box, okay? So here's my SSL this is a good one. This is actually a good plugin, sounds really good, okay? This is on my lead vocal track, right? I want an EQ a lead vocal. I want an EQ a lead vocal, right? I'm gonna go to camera 2. I'm over here, here's my lead vocal, little high pass, little cutout around 200, high pass filter, rolling off a little bit here, give me a little reverb. 4 seconds. 4 seconds to make that move, right? In the box, I wanna make those same 3 EQ or 4 EQ moves. Here's our box. I gotta find my mouse, where is it on the screen? Okay, I wanna make it a bell or a shelf. I gotta find my frequency, I gotta turn this knob, I gotta turn this knob. Then I gotta go over to my 200, I gotta turn this down, I gotta find this, listen for where it sounds good, I gotta back it off. I gotta come over to my high mids, I gotta find my frequency, I gotta do this, and I'm constantly moving. It takes 3 times as long, and that's only on one channel, right? So now take that plug-in and put it across all 32 channels like I have 32 analog channels. By the time you're done opening and closing all 32 plug-in windows, I've already mixed the damn song. It's fast. And when it's fast and you're not looking at the screen like we're looking at here, and we're not looking at the values, and our eyes are not distracted by the VU meter, and we're not trying to figure it out. When you're not doing any of that, you're listening, you're not looking. So when you're looking at a plug-in window, you're listening with your eyes and not with your ears. It's just even the ones that have trained themselves to be very disciplined to stay focused on the listening and not the looking. It's just a human thing, the way our brains and our eyes and our ears are all attached. If you're looking at that screen, you are distracted from what's coming out of those speakers, even if that's at a small degree. So not only is it faster to work this way, and as I said a little earlier, I have no idea what the frequencies are. I don't care. I'm listening. It becomes then you're pushing the console, you're thinking more in a creative way, and you're not thinking in a technical way. As soon as I put my hand on a mouse and a keyboard, it's like I'm working on a spreadsheet, right? And if you're some of the guys that are looking at a small little screen and you're well, I have a big screen because I can't see, but let's say you're doing this on a laptop. I don't know how the hell guys mix on a laptop. Here's a 13-inch laptop and I got to look at the screen. I'm all hunched over. To me, that's like going to work. That's not creative. That's not playing music. That's working music. And it's a different kind of a feel. And when it's a different kind of a feel, it's a different kind of a mindset. And the results are different. So there's a lot of advantages when you work in an analog way. It's not just, is the sound better or worse? Because it's not better or worse. It's different. It's all subjective. It's the workflow. And you feel like you're part of the performance, which is one of the reasons why when you talk about, this console in particular doesn't have automation, and we talked last time about everyone freaks out about automation. Oh my God, you can't automate, blah, blah, blah. You know how I automate? When we're printing it back to the print track, more times than not. Live. It's not recallable. It's a performance, right? I don't have this little table here and I'm not talking to people like I am today, and I'm focused and I'm moving, man. Sometimes I'll put console tape on the faders in different sections of the song, and I know in the chorus I'm over here. I got all 10 fingers happening all at once. And it's a performance. It's not a static thing where I'm opening up a plugin on my DAW control and I'm taking my pencil and I'm drawing in the automation. That to me, even though it's more accurate, even though it's recallable and it's effective, and it's convenient, no doubt about that, that's way different than riding a fader with your ears, not your eyes. Way different. And unless you've done that for any length of time, you don't even understand what I'm talking about. You understand it theoretically, but you can't appreciate it until you've done it. And I'm telling you, every person that's come into this room, that's touched this console, who's never worked on one before, would take it with them if I'd let them take it with them. I've never had anybody come in here and go, I would much rather work with my plugins. Not one. It's the truth. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going on a rant. This is supposed to be a 5-minute test. Turns into a 2-hour live stream. It's okay. If you guys are having fun, I'm having fun with you. It's okay. Okay. Hi, Braxel. How are you? Eric Valentine works hybrid as well. Yes, he does. Love Eric Valentine. Love him. But prior to him working hybrid in his new studio that he built up in Vermont, he owned Barefoot Studios. What do you think was in Barefoot Studios? Big console, racks of gear. Not that he doesn't work in the box. Of course he does. Tool is still using a Midas Heritage 3000. Oh, cool. Yeah, I hear that's a really good, that's like a, isn't that like a staple of the live environment? I've never worked on one, but I know the name of the console. Thunderhouse, I have a sound company along with my studio. As far as analog in the live world, it is harder. It's a harder comparison. The speaker and microphone technology are currently available are way better. Okay, yeah, in the live, yeah, analog in the live world, I think it's a different animal. I would probably agree with that. I don't have experience in that, but that makes total sense to me. And if that's what you do, I completely would probably agree. Spot on, Dave. The example is spot on. Good stuff. Great. Slim Creek, facts. I think I try to speak facts, or what I believe to be facts. What do they call that? Facts. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I definitely feel the screen slows me down significantly. So many distractions that led me to jump. From working on one track to temptations of going back, mid-mix, making production moves. Yeah. So the thing about digital that's so awesome is right. The convenience, the cost, the ability to go back, the ability to recall, the ability to tweak to your heart's content. None of that stuff is a bad thing, but it's good and bad. There's a lot of benefit that I've found. And again, I've only been doing this really hardcore for 2 years. So I'm not speaking from 30 years of experience. I'm only speaking from 2. But I've come to really embrace and like the limitations. The limitations on we're committing to a sound, we're committing to a mix. Not everything is recallable. I can't go back and make 5,000 changes whenever I want. You know, it's there. Some people see that as a drawback, and it is, you know, but it's also a blessing because it forces you to give yourself a timeline, give yourself a deadline, learn your tools, have limited options. I have limited options. I don't have 4,000 plugins to choose from. And to pick a sound, use your gut instinct, move on, a performance, we're done. Could it be better? Sure, it can always be better. Is the mix ever done? No. When is a mix ever done? But once it's off the console, I can't go back. Yeah, I can recall it. We've talked about that. We can recall a session and we could go through the painstaking process of doing that, but we don't do it here. I don't do it. Why? The next project will be better. Move on. You know, dang, you can't spend 2 weeks mixing a song. That's absurd. 2 weeks to mix a song. Absurd. You never get anything done, right? So I like the limitations. And I feel the more conveniences you have, the more you'll tend to fall into that trap and not even realize it. And sometimes there's a benefit to it. I get it. And sometimes you go, oh, thank God I did it in the box because I got a whatever. But I don't know, man. I'll tell you what. I mixed for years in the box for clients. I've now mixed 2 years solid for clients analog. And I've yet to run into a situation where the analog was, you know, what was somewhere where we had to go back and couldn't go back or it became a problem. It just isn't. It just isn't. So, I don't know. Dave, can you just get a MIDI controller to act like a console. Any suggestions? I don't have the room for a console. Sure, if you want and I've done, again, at Home Recording Made Easy, Braxel, I've done all last year into part of this year, we did almost every single DAW controller on the market. We've reviewed and tested. And there's a lot of good products out there. And if you're just looking for faders, they're great. The problem is most of them are clunky at best when it comes to plug-in control. In other words, being able to map a plug-in to a controller so it feels just like an analog thing where you could go really quick. The SSL UF8 is the only, UC1, excuse me, is the only one that's good enough. The rest of them are terrible at that function. And so you still, even with the DAW controller, what I found is that it does not eliminate the mouse and keyboard. Not even by a long shot. It doesn't even eliminate it by 50%. It does eliminate some of it. It does get you one step closer to this kind of a feel and workflow. But it's not the same, because as soon as, and here's what I tell people, I've said this on my other channel. The number one thing you do in a DAW when you're working is what? When you're mixing, not recording. What is the number one task that you do in a DAW? Anybody have any idea? What would you think it is? If you had to guess, what is the thing that you do when you're working all in the box the most? The task that you do more than anything else in a mix? What do you think it is? Go ahead, right below. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna run and refill my water. I'll be right back. I'm not going anywhere. But just, what is the thing you do over and over and over and over and over, hundreds and hundreds of times in a DAW, in a mix? Give me 2 seconds, I'll be right back. I'm back. Let's see. Who's got the answer? Okay, Braxel's the few you guys said, opening and closing plugin windows. It's the number one thing you do. And if you didn't realize that and went, oh, really? Next time you do a mix, pay attention to that. How many clicks of a mouse do you open and do and close a plugin window? And not even open and close the plugin window, but to manipulate the controls on the plugin, which is what you do even more of than opening and closing them, right? If I open up that channel strip again, I only have to open and close it once. Yes, you could program it to a hotkey. Yes, you can program that to a DAW controller. But to manipulate that plugin, because all the plugins are different with all different controls, a lot more manipulation. That's the one thing you do more than anything else, and it is the one thing that most DAW controllers are the worst at. They're terrible at it for the most part. The only one that's really close, there's two of them. The Soft Tube Console 1 is good. It's a plug-in controller with a set of faders. The Solid State Logic UC1 is even better than the Soft Tube because it not only controls the plug-in, but it looks just like this channel strip. Identical layout, identical size and colored knobs, identical feeling knobs. But you have to use the SSL plugin, and you can only use the SSL plugin. You can't use any plugin that you want. That's the drawback. But, so you get right back down to most DAW controllers, you end up half the time still opening and closing and tweaking things with a mouse or a tracker ball, or a mouse pad or a trackpad, whatever. That's the problem with just the DAW controller. That's why the DAW controllers don't feel like this. And believe me, like I've said, I've tested them. I work on both. I can tell you, The fader part, great. The rest of it, and the fader part is the thing you do the least. Even in analog, right? Think about it. If I'm turning up this B3 organ, it's up. Most of my time is spent here, not here. Yes, you get it up, get it down, blend it in, but you touch the faders far less frequent than you're touching all your other parameters. That's why the DAW controllers aren't quite there. But is it help you get one step closer? Yes, it does. Mix Club says, CLA said, one time, I don't take breaks, I mix until the song is done. He must be talking about working on the console. I need a break after 30 or 40 minutes. Okay, so the way CLA works, I only know this because I've seen him say this, and he's one of my favorite mixers, and I like his process. And I think I've said this once before, but when I first built this studio, the workflow of the way I have things set up, I use CLA's kind of workflow as kind of my starting point because I like the simplicity of his workflow, the way he sets up his DAW sessions and the way he organizes his sessions. 90% of my workflow I stole from him because I like it. It's simple, it's effective, and it's quick, and it's consistent. But the way he mixes is he has an assistant that preps all his sessions, obviously. Most of these guys do. So when he gets the session, it's already routed to his console. He's not putting tape down and writing stuff out. He knows every single time vocals are on channel 13. And every single session is lead vocals on the same channel. And every single EQ move and stuff is already kind of predetermined from the last lead vocal, and he just goes and he sweetens it and he tweaks it. He said that. He's very smart. So he has sessions that are prepped, that are laid out for him, preliminary. He comes in, he pushes up and he does his CLA thing, right? Who can argue with what he does, right? He's great. His mixes are, some of his mixes are legendary, right? So he's also known for mixing very quickly. And the reason why he mixes very quickly is because everything is already prepped for him, and he has instincts and he has a process, and he is dialed in his process and his chains, all his hardware, not all of it, most of it, he has said is in chains. In other words, his master bus is mostly same EQ, same compressor every single time. The settings never change. He drives the console into his master bus hardware processing. He doesn't go over there and patch it every single time and try to figure out where everything is. It's all set up. His lead vocal chain is always through an 1176 Blue Stripe. Most times. It's already set. He doesn't even change the settings. He found where it sounds best, and he uses the console to drive into that particular compressor. I do that as well. Not as much as he does because I'm still experimenting with the gear, but part of that learning process is he's learned what works for him and what he likes. And the reason why he has 7 racks full of gear behind him, which looks great, by the way, is so he doesn't have to go to a patch bay and constantly patch and unpatch things. He's got 5 of everything. So he could spread it out. He doesn't have to, you know what I mean? That's why he does it that way. And therefore, my guess would be, and what I've heard him say, and what I believe he's probably telling the truth mostly, is that he has his setup, he has his chains, he has his prep, and he does everything the same way every single time. So when he comes into mix, he mixes by instinct. He's even said himself, he doesn't sit and listen to the song over and over and over. He wants first impression. He's, you know, again, he's a master craftsman, and he knows exactly what that thing should sound like in his head, and in 2 or 3 hours, he's got a balance. And he's known for mixing things quickly. And he does that because he has a process that's been refined over and over again, that he makes it so he could do those things relatively fast. It doesn't mean that he doesn't spend a lot of time on a mix in certain examples, but in most cases, he mixes pretty quick. That's how he's able to do it. But what he doesn't tell you is that, oh yeah, maybe the mix took me, Mr. Algae, 3 hours, but my assistant took 4 hours prepping the session and comping and tuning the vocal and everything. So the mix took a day and a half. But his part of it maybe only took a few hours. That's how he does it. Where like guys like you, Mix Club, and guys like me have to do everything, right? So we take 3-4 times longer because by the time we get it out to the console, we've already spent 2 hours working on it in the box, getting it ready. So that's would be why I think that is. Thunderhouse says, I have done tests in the studio using my live digital console, and even using that instead of looking at a screen, at least for me, has better results. It is very different than a controller. Yeah, it is. But controllers are great, and you can get used to working with anything. You know, if you work with something long enough, you could figure out a way to make it work for you. Again, everybody's workflow and the way they like to work is totally different. And again, none of it is better or worse. It's just different in how you like to work and what your budget will allow you to buy, you know? Matthew, hi Matthew. How do you like the Bluey? How does it compare to the Audioscape Blueface? Completely different. We did a video. Oh no, we did a video comparing the Audioscape Blue Stripe to 2 Blue Stripe plugins. And in that video at the beginning, if you ever get a chance to watch it, Matthew, we talked about the video originally was supposed to be the Bluey against the Audioscape and against the plugin. And the reason why we couldn't do that video is they're so completely different sounding and the way they react is so different. We couldn't seem to set it up in a way where we can make a really good video that would be beneficial to anybody. I like the Bluey. Yesterday, I keep saying yesterday, the day before yesterday when Dave was up, the other video that we did that's coming shortly, Matthew, is we did the Bluey, my Bluey versus the new 500 series Blackline Audio Bluey. They now make that in a 500 rack. Dave has one of those and he brought it up and we tested them back and forth. You'll see that comparison as well. They're not the same. The Bluey I like. I don't use it as much as my other 1176s that I have because it does one thing really well. And if you really want an aggressive, kind of a gritty kind of a thing with a compressor, tonally, that's the one I reach for. But to me, it's not as versatile as other 1176s. Primarily because the release time, even on its fastest setting, in a lot of cases is too slow for me. But I like it, and it's a nice tool to have in the box. I just don't use that tool every single mix. Okay. Trip Killer says, whoops, that's what we did in the 90s, tweaking and aligning things and printing them back to tape from Pro Tools. The magic was starting from that turned session. Oh, okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I see you now have 4 DBX 160s. We do. They're, yeah, right up there. Up there. Are those really a lot better than the 500 series version? A lot better? No, we did a video on it, Braxel. I know you watch all the videos. Did you not see that one? We did that one. Dave brought up a pair of those 560s and we compared them to the 160s and they're a little different. Are they that much better? No. Are they comparable? Yes. Do they sound a little different? A little different, yeah. 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 So the 500 series ones are great. Do they sound like the rack units mostly? Are they any better or worse? Not really. They're a little different. I bought mine on Reverb because you know the 160s I just bought on Reverb. I never got ripped off. Well, 2 of them I bought from on Reverb from Revive Audio because 2 of them have the modifications in them, and then the other 2 were stock. Both of those were bought on Reverb, and I think I paid maybe $350 for each one, $300 to $350, somewhere in there. You know, they look brand new. I mean, really great sounding compressors for the money. It's actually one of my newfound learning in all of this was that DBX 160. I never considered a DBX compressor, even when I was working in the box. But when I got the hardware, I got one and I heard it. I went, wow, this thing is really versatile. I really like that DBX 160. So I bought 4 of them. I love it on kick. I love it on bass. I love it on overheads. So I wanted to have a few of them. And for the money, you can't beat them. At least I think. Have you ever used a reverse gated plate on a snare and then use a plate after it? Maybe a couple of times. It's not one of the standard things that I do. In the box, I've done that a couple of times in the past. Yeah, it's not something I do all the time. That's got a very specific effect in the sound, and if you want that sound, you can do that, and it does sound good. It's effective, but it's not something I do all the time. How long have we been here? Another 2.5 hours. This is supposed to be a 5-minute test. So anyway, okay, we're probably going to wrap it up now. Again, thanks so much for joining the test. If you missed what we were doing here in the beginning, I was testing the audio from the console, making sure everything was going good. It seems like it's all working. We got all the different camera switches that we're going to be able to do at one point really soon, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And so the next live stream we're going to do, I'm not sure when it's going to be yet, but we're going to probably start with the compressor. I'm going to pull it out on the console. I'm going to bring it over here, so it's right over here where I can reach it. And we're going to learn about that particular compressor on multiple things in a mix, and we're going to learn where it sounds good, where it doesn't sound good, make it sound bad, make it sound good, turn the knobs all the way one way, turn all the knobs the other way. And we're going to learn about where a piece of gear can be effective in a mix and what it sounds like on different elements and what all the controls do. So we're going to learn about the gear, and we're going to do some mixing stuff as well. And that's what we're going to do. When will that be? Soon. I don't know. Soon. So anyway, again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. I love when I just get on here and I don't schedule these. I just jump on, do a test. I got some free time. And always 20 to 30 of you always show up and are very interactive. Pardon me, we have lots of good conversation, and I really do appreciate it. I hope you're getting something out of this channel. I really enjoy and appreciate all of you. You guys are great. And thank you again. So until the next time we meet, stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys really soon. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your holiday today.